Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So sorry it's been a few weeks since our last upload. That's because I was sick for 2 weeks and I couldn't really taste or smell anything. And then I got COVID from one of my kids who brought it home from school. So it's been a month, but I'm happy to be back into the grind. And today I wanted to talk about Nulu. Okay, so this is whiskey that it's more or less pretty experimental. So this is a distillery, PCS, so Prohibition Craft Spirits down in Kentucky. And what they do is they take MGP sourced juice from Indiana, and then they do different things with it. So they select their barrels, and then they finish it in different things. They do some experimental stuff. And so I've got a couple of things on the tabletop tonight. One is the toasted barrel proof, and then the other one is the experimental finish. It is the French oak finish, and this one is actually a barrel pick. It's not just one off of the shelf at the store. This was a pick that was done courtesy of the r/bourbon folks over on Reddit, and I threw my hat in the ring to get a bottle of this and got selected, so purchased one, and it came just a couple days ago. So really interesting spirit. But a lot of people ask about Nulu because Nulu tends to be, they have, to their credit, I will say that their branding is pretty good. Like their bottling and branding. So if you go to the store and you see Nulu up on the top shelf, it kind of jumps out at you, right? The white ivory-ish label with the dark font that kind of jumps out at you and kind of grabs your attention. The wax seals on the top. I mean, a lot of the bottling and branding is really designed in such a way that it kind of gets your attention. It looks pretty good. And so a lot of people ask about Nulu. Is Nulu worth the money? Because like I said, it's up on that top shelf. So it's kind of hard to find a bottle of Nulu for under $100. Sometimes, depending on what the bottle is, you can get it for $85. But a lot of them are 100 and above. And both of these on the tabletop tonight are over $100 MSRP. So you're going to be spending, $115 to $130 probably on either one of these bottles tonight. So let's talk a little bit more about who Nulu is, what they're doing, and if it's worth your money to buy a bottle of this juice when you compare it to other options at that same price point. So like I said, Nulu, so they source their whiskey from MGP. And usually it's between 4 and 6 years old, that juice. So it's not like way up there in terms of an age statement. I've got some 15 and 16-year bourbons on my shelf that cost just as much as these. But this one, for example, the Toasted, is labeled a 5-year. It has a 5-year age statement on it. This one, the experimental finish, does not actually have an age statement on it at all. It's just called straight bourbon that's been finished in French oak barrels. Since it doesn't have an age statement, but it says straight, we know that it is at least 4 years old. So 4 to 6 years on that one, 5 years on this one, we know. So in terms of the age of the whiskey, it's relatively young at that price point. I mean, it's not unheard of, though. Not unheard of. And I will say this. I am a big fan of transparency when it comes to whiskey. Like, one of my favorite things is to pick up a bottle, look at the bottle, and then know everything that I want to know. I don't want to have to go hunt down information. Some people do enjoy that process. Like, they'll look at the barrel number and maybe even the batch number, and they'll research it online to find out everything they want to know about those things. I actually prefer it when they do that work for you. So, for comparison's sake, I've got a bottle of Bardstown. This is their Origin series. Bardstown is one of my favorite distilleries when it comes to labeling. So everything I want to know is right here. It tells me when it was distilled, fall of 2016. It tells me where it was distilled, how old it is, 6 years. It gives me the full mash bill. 68% corn, 20% wheat, 12% barley. Everything I could want to know about this, they put on the label. It's one of the things they do very, very well. Nulu, there's a very short blurb on the backs of these bottles that says what they were trying to do, right? After hand selecting these barrels from MGP, we finished them in freshly toasted barrels from anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. We taste them diligently, and that's about it. That's about all you know about it. It does say the proof. This one, like I said, does have an age statement. This one does not. They don't even disclose which mash bill it is. I mean, we know when you go online and look it up, you can find that information. But otherwise, you're just kind of left to guess. I prefer when they put all that information on the bottle itself. So that is one knock I will give against Nulu. In my glass tonight, I do have one of these poured. It's the French oak finish. And I do want to talk about this one in particular, because I think it's worth chatting about, obviously, how the stuff tastes when we're talking about if it's worth the money or not. And that really is the bottom line. That's what we want to talk about today, is this juice worth the cost? Because it is pretty pricey stuff. I've given you a couple of knocks against them already. One is the youth of the whiskey in the bottles at that price point. Another knock I've given them is their labeling. But I do think there's some redeeming qualities about Nulu that are worth talking about. I want to start with the French oak, because I think that's the most interesting one that I've ever had from Nulu. And I've had probably 4 to 5 different Nulu pours at this point. And the thing is, they will tell you this on their website. You probably won't have the same drink twice from them. Since they pick everything per barrel, unless you're drinking from this, you get bottles from the same barrel, then usually, if you have Nulu, it's going to be different than the last Nulu that you had. Chances are pretty slim you're drinking from the same barrel twice, unless you specifically hunt down those bottles. So it's a bit of a crapshoot. You're kind of like playing the lottery. You're kind of rolling the dice when you buy a bottle of Nulu, because the Nulu that you read a review of from your favorite reviewer is not the same Nulu that you're going to be picking up from the store. It's just the chances are extremely slim. So you kind of have to know that going into it, that you are rolling the dice for $100 roughly. You're basically saying, here's $100. I'm going to put it in the slot machine of whiskey, and I could get something good out of this. I could get something I don't like out of this. I will tell you that up front. That has been my Nulu experience. I have had bottles of Nulu that I regretted spending $100 on. This one is one of them. I have also had bottles from Nulu that I did not regret spending $100 on, and this is one of them. So let's talk about this experimental finish in the French oak. Now, as far as the crapshoot thing goes, it's so true with this bottle, because they'll tell you on the labeling on the back that they basically got French oak barrels that were used for wine, brandy, and cognac, and all from different places, right? And they're putting the juice, then they're rebarreling it from the white oak, the Quercus alba barrels, and they're rebarreling it into these used barrels that were used for different kinds of wines, cognacs, brandies, etc. That are French oak, so Quercus robur. But this is a single barrel. But it doesn't tell me anywhere on here if that was a barrel of brandy, ex-brandy, or if it was, ex-sherry, ex-cognac, ex-whatever. I have no idea. It just says various wine, and then it says cognac and brandy. So, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea tasting this if this came from a sherry cask or a brandy cask, cognac cask. No clue. And so it just kind of it goes all the way back to that crapshoot idea. That's what Nulu is. It's a roll of the dice. And the labeling doesn't give you enough information to know ahead of time what the stakes are on that dice roll. So it's kind of an interesting experience in that regard. But if you don't know anything about French oak, Quercus robur, let me just unpack that a little bit for you real quick, so you know, well, how's that any different than aging it in an American oak barrel? So American oak usually comes from Missouri, Arkansas. Those are the places where the Sawyers are really getting most of the American oak that is used in whiskey aging. But then French oak usually comes from the area of Limousin, so you might hear that word, Limousin oak, used as well. It just means French oak. Quercus robur is the proper name for it. But anyways, that oak is much different. So French oak tends to be much more tannic, which is why wine, enthusiasts really love Quercus robur. But whiskey agers really like to use it for finishing purposes because you get some different characteristics out of that wood that you don't get out of white oak, Quercus alba. So like I said, much more tannic, so you get some more dry tannins in there. You also get like dried fruit tastes, sometimes chocolatey notes out of French oak that you don't otherwise get a lot out of a white oak. So it's kind of cool when people do experimental finishes with French oak. But we do want to note that this isn't virgin French oak. They didn't get French oak, cooper it specifically for finishing this whiskey. They had to get used oak, used French oak. And there's a reason for that, because most French oak gets snatched up by the wine industry. They snatch that stuff up real quick. And obviously it's more local to a lot of the wine industry that's over there in Spain and France and Italy, etc. So they're snatching that stuff up really quickly. French oak is pretty prized, so getting your hands on virgin French oak is kind of a challenge. So we know they did not do that. They said this is used French oak. But the thing is, wines are not nearly as hard on the wood as whiskey is. So it leaves a lot of stuff behind in that oak for the whiskey to grab if it's, X brandy, X cognac, X wine, whatever. So let's nose this a little bit here. Now, I use cognac quite a bit because I like to make cocktails, and one of my favorite cocktails is a whiskey cocktail called the Sazerac, and it actually uses cognac in it. Now, I do not have any clue definitively what kind of a barrel this was put in, if it was wine, cognac, brandy. But I will tell you that I get some cognac vibes on the nose for sure. A little bit of that stemmy grape, but it's not a lot of it. I'm almost getting more like French toast on the nose than anything else. And definitely that tannic oak for sure. French toast, stemmy grape, and tannic oak. Let's go in on it though. I definitely do get some of that maple that comes through. That's probably predominantly the bourbon. But then I definitely do get that sort of stemmy grape on the palate as well. But it does transfer to the palate quite well. It almost finishes kind of like a cognac, you know? It's really interesting in that regard because it finishes more like a wine. It's drier. Those tannins kind of take over later in that tasting experience. And you're left with that dry, stemmy grape flavor when it started out more French toast. So it kind of progresses through those flavors. Kind of the same way that the whiskey, the distillate itself did. Started out as a bourbon, aged as a bourbon, finished in French oak. It's an experience for sure. And one that I thoroughly enjoy. That's really good stuff. Now, like I said, I don't regret buying this bottle. I think it's actually really tasty stuff. But it is really expensive. And here's where my problem with Nulu really lies. Is that there are people doing the same things they're doing, but at significantly lower price points. You think of this bottle here, this is the toasted finish. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This bottle was $115. I spent $60 on, Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. And I think Double Oaked tastes better than this. Not only that, but there are other people that are doing sourced whiskey, I mean specifically MGP whiskey even, and finishing it in toasted barrels too, rebarreling it. You've got like Penelope right now. Yeah, it's a younger whiskey, but they have a toasted finish that's, what is that, like a $60 bottle, something like that, Penelope, and I think that's better than this at $115. And it really just all comes down to the fact that they pick barrels specifically. And sometimes the barrel that they pick is going to line up with your palate in a right way. It's going to have the same flavor profiles that you really like and enjoy. And you might love a bottle of Nulu. But then you also run the risk of them picking a barrel that you don't really vibe with. And so it doesn't matter how they finish it. You might just not like it. I mean, even with this one, with the French oak finish, you've got people doing that too, notably very, very well. Now, I will tell you that the reviews of the French oak finish Nulu online are not as favorable as my review was, but that's because somebody else picked this barrel. Obviously, the guys over at r/bourbon did a barrel pick, and they picked one that they thought was exceptional, and I agree with them. I think it's a great bottle. But when you just buy this off the shelf, like I said, you're rolling the dice again. There are other people doing French oak finishes that are consistently on the shelf, reviewed very well. I mean, Lucky 7 does one that is, I think, around like the $80 price point. So spending, again, $110 on this bottle, you're $30 more for rolling the dice. Or we can do a safe bet that's a French oak finish from Lucky 7, $80, significantly cheaper, and more consistently reviewed favorably. And that really is my problem with Nulu. It is so inconsistent. And if I'm going to roll the dice on something, I am just personally not comfortable enough rolling the dice consistently at a $100 price point. I'd be more willing to do it in the $50 to $60 range, half the cost. And so my recommendation with you when it comes to Nulu is if you really want to try a bottle and you're willing to lose the dough on it, I mean, go for it. But otherwise, I think your safest bet is to wait until somebody does a barrel pick or you do a barrel pick with a group, and you can taste them yourself, sample them yourself, and pick one that you really like. Or somebody that you trust is doing a barrel pick and you're willing to roll the dice on their pick. But otherwise, I don't know that I can recommend that you spend the money on Nulu right now, unless something changes. Obviously, I think that they've got some of their own distillate. I'm pretty sure I read this, that Nulu has their own distillate that's aging right now. It's just not ready to hit the shelf. So in the meantime, they're sourcing and picking barrels. So maybe down the line, when the distillery is a little bit older, has some more repertoire, and have a better reputation for consistency, then maybe my tune will change. But as of right now, I'm not sure I can, in good conscience, recommend you drop $100+ on Nulu bottles. I lucked out with this one, though. This one is very good. Anyways, I want to know what you think about Nulu. Have you ever bought a bottle of Nulu or paid for a pour at a bar? What was your experience like? Did you think it was worth the price that you paid for it? I would really love to know your thoughts as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters. I appreciate you very, very much. You help justify keeping this channel going. Cheers, everybody. May you get better with age, and hope to catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.